You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
What is up, good people? Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. This episode is long overdue. Well, sort of. I published it here, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago for the Patreon listeners of the podcast. As you are probably aware, they get extra bonus episodes and early sneak peeks and things like that. But yes, it is still overdue. I recorded this episode live in person with the MIRC folks. If you don't know who MIRC is, they are kind of this unsung hero of the musical gear industry that takes instruments that otherwise would have ended up in landfills and gets them back into shops that otherwise wouldn't be able to carry those brands and into the hands of players that maybe couldn't otherwise afford those instruments. They take something that's going to be actual garbage and turn it into a magnificent instrument for somebody to learn on, cherish, and love, and create with. And what's truly incredible is they don't do this by the ones and twos. They do this by the thousands. They literally have partners all over the globe, and they're partners with some of the biggest musical instrument manufacturers in the world, and they take these things by the thousands, by the literal container load, and get them refurbished, ready to go, and back into playing condition. It's really impressive. I had a chance to go see the whole operation. It is really amazing. Here's what's not amazing, though. Equipment failures. Yahoo! That's great. You gotta love equipment failures. Everything looked right. Everything looked like it was good to go. Somehow, something got screwed up with my interface, and all the mics weren't recording, at least not at the levels that they should have been, including mine. Jason's sounds all right. Ian and I, not so much. And this is my fault. I did not catch this. I thought I was monitoring everything correctly. Anyway, it was really stupid, and I screwed it up. So we did the best we could with it. I didn't want this conversation to go to waste because it was really, really good. They're a really cool company, and I wanted more people to be aware of them. So we did what we could with it. Nick worked his audio editing skills. We tried to, compress and squeeze and bring things up and noise reduce, and it doesn't sound that good. It definitely does not sound like what I typically want this podcast to sound like. It just straight up doesn't. But it's far from unlistenable. I've actually heard a lot worse. It's just not up to the snuff that I would like it to be. So, there is that. However, like I said, it is a really great operation, a really great group of people, and a really great conversation. Just give it a few minutes. I think you'll be able to get through and your ears will adjust and you'll be okay with it. Because honestly, the chat is that good. So without further ado, let's get into this one with Jason and Ian from MIRC. Here we go. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Jason and Ian from MIRC. Actually, you have me.
We have you.
Yeah.
Yes.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great.
Yeah, very good. There's so much to go over. So very much, because oftentimes I like to get into the people that I'm talking to and not just the company, but there's so many things that your company does that I think the general public isn't as aware of as they should be. Let's maybe start with the company, what you guys do, and the history of that, and then we can get into you guys yourselves. So what is it that MIRC does? What's it stand for? What's the idea? What's going on here? What are we talking about today?
Well, I could do that for a whole hour on
Perfect.
just that one question. Well, MIRC stands for Musical Instrument Reclamation Corporation. So the business was started in 1993 by a gentleman named Monty Richards. Monty, he had a music store in the Ozarks, and there was and still is a distributor called St. Louis Music.
Yeah.
Back in that day, St. Louis Music had Alvarez guitars, crate amplifiers, Ampeg amps, Nilling violins, and all that. Well, they would do dealer events where they would bring their dealers in to St. Louis and show them what all the new things were, and just have a couple days to hang out together. And the owner of that company, Gene Kornblum, at one of these events, took Monty aside and said, "Hey, I've got this whole pile of guitars that didn't pass our quality inspection, and they're taking up all this space in my warehouse, and I don't want those guitars going out to our dealers because I want them buying the new stuff, the stuff that has no imperfections in it whatsoever."
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, "Can you think of something that we could do with these?" And because he didn't want to just throw them in the trash can. He wanted something to happen with them.
Sure.
And the whole idea of this business started out of that. Monty ended up selling his music store in the Ozarks. He had moved to Tennessee. In Franklin, he had a small shop to start with, and that lasted about a year, I think it was. And then he built a building in Franklin where the business was housed until right now, where we're sitting in our brand new building that we just ended up finishing up this week.
Yeah. Good timing.
Yeah.
So the idea primarily was just like, we've got these instruments. They're not bad per se. They're not useless.
Right.
But they need some love. And then they can go on to new homes and, inspire people and all that good stuff that we love. I think it's kind of crazy to hear about it starting. I mean, obviously, St. Louis Music was a big player and still is a big player in the industry. But it's still pretty humble beginnings to see what it has become. This new facility you guys are standing in is super impressive, and it's not even finished yet. It's pretty crazy to see what you guys have managed to grow this into. So you took over in 2020 is what we talked about in the warehouse there.
Yeah.
What a time. What a time to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back a little bit on that, another interesting part of this is I spent 10 years of my career at St. Louis Music.
Okay.
And learned most of what I know about the music industry from Gene Kornblum. So it was very cool to be able to call him up and go, "Hey, this business that you helped start that's been going on for, at that point, 25 years, I just bought it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so it kind of all came together there. So myself and my partner Natalie, we purchased this in January of 2020. We had worked together at Cordoba Music Group, which I was brought into that when Cordoba Music bought the Guild brand
Mm-hmm.
from Fender. And I came in as vice president of sales for that. They needed people Cordoba very much understood the nylon string market, and then they were getting into the steel string market, and they needed people that just understood more about that side of the business.
It's incredible how, for being the same basic concept of an instrument, the markets are completely different.
They are. They very much are.
Yeah.
And Cordoba here in the U.S. had just owned that market.
Yeah.
On the nylon string market.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had been selling our instruments that weren't, quite up to the grade that we wanted to MIRC. So that's how my relationship had gotten started with Monty, the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And then he called one day and said, "Hey, I'm to the point where I'm ready to retire.
Right.
I'm just, I'm tired. I've done this for a long time. I want to make sure this carries on. I want to make sure the employees are all taken care of, and we're just, would you be interested in this? And he knew that I was looking to move up and do something different. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So, Natalie and I got all of our money together. We, put second mortgages on our houses. We put it all there, put all of our money to the middle of the table. January of 2020 and March of 2020, shut it down.
Yeah, shut it down, man. And it's funny to think back to that time, that particular period, right? Because I have to check myself sometimes because I'm like, yeah, when I was at NAMM in 2020, I'm like, I was at NAMM in 2020.
Yeah.
I was at NAMM in 2020. It was like the last, until very recently, the last real NAMM show. And so it's weird to even say that. Like, yeah, we were all at NAMM. And we were all kind of, at least the crew I was running with, were like, should we be here?
Right.
Should we be doing this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? Well, that company says Wuhan on it.
and I'm pretty sure I got COVID there. Well, none of us knew what it was then, and all of us that as I told you earlier, I've been going to NAMM shows for almost 30 years now, so I'm no stranger to NAMthrax.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I pregame, I got my airborne, I get my shots. I'm always prepared, but you can't run from NAMthrax. It will find you.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is all that stuff and copious hand sanitizer and cross your fingers. That's the best thing you can do. Yeah,
but I remember that one being a really bad strain of NAMthrax, so it probably was COVID, and we just didn't know to get tested at that point.
Well, fortunately / unfortunately, this is not the thing we won't necessarily need to discuss on the show, but I got it in the fall of 19. Me and my whole family, we didn't know what was going on, but it was full strength. Like,
wow.
We were so sick for weeks, and I was like, what I was fever dreaming monsters, and like, we were so bad. We talk about it sometimes, and I think we got a little PTSD from it. We were so sick. And then I've had it a couple times since then. It was like the snivels. But that full strength stuff was, whew. I got taken out. Well, my wife was teasing me at first. She said, "Oh, you got the man flu. You got the man flu." And I'm like, "I don't have the man flu." And she got it. She's like, "It's not the man flu." And so, yeah, that was a bad. So all that to say is, I think I had a little immunity brought up because I didn't get sick at that now. So I was okay. But during that period, so that's obviously a big challenge, right? You were all of a sudden shut down.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? What were you thinking? Like, okay, I've just bet literally the house on this. What do I do? What was the game plan? How did you pull? Obviously it worked out, but what were you thinking?
Yeah. Well, first of all, scared to death.
Yeah.
For everything, for the business, for just
humanity.
All of us. We just didn't know
Yeah.
how that was all going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to get back to work as soon as we could. And for us, it was a little easier than some people because, our shop guys wear masks half the day anyway.
Yep.
And we're, at that point we were like 18 people when we were full strength in a building that was 25,000 square feet. So there was plenty of room for people to be away from each other. And so... yeah, as soon as we felt like it was safe, which was about 3 weeks after we had shut down, we're like, well, let's start with a small crew of 10, and let's just go back in and let's see how it works out and see what we can do. And it didn't take very long after that. I would say it was 2 weeks after that we were back to full strength of 18 because the demand from people sitting at home and wanting to learn how to play guitar was so high that anyone that had guitars was selling them as fast as they could.
Yes.
So what started as one kind of panic turned into another kind of panic because we quickly ran through everything that we had. And, where a manufacturer's problem is they couldn't just order more product and have it in. We couldn't order more guitars to be broken so we could fix them.
Right.
So we were one more step past that. So there were times where I was looking around the warehouse and we were just trying to find anything for the repair guys to work on to make sure that they had stuff to do and that we could generate as much income as we could.
Mm-hmm. So backtracking a little bit, we got into Jason's story a little bit. Ian, what's your story? How did you get to be working here?
Yeah, so I'm 20 years in at MIRC. Started in 2004, right out of basically school. And I moved to town to play guitar, like many of us do, of course. And I had a friend and bandmate / roommate that worked at MIRC, and so he got me in. Started in the shipping department and quickly went through some of the other departments and landed in the shop and worked in the shop for a couple of years, and then started managing the shop. And then, of course, through the 2000 teens, just kind of did whatever needed to be done, so to speak. And then, when Jason and Natalie bought MIRC, we kind of regrouped and figured out how we could start growing everything. And it's been a great experience. And that's kind of, happy to talk more about it, but that's the quick and dirty version. Mm-hmm. So,
but you seem like there was something about, to stick around anything that long is a little bit unusual in this day and age. It's pretty common for people to hop off to other things, not just in this industry, but into other industries as well. What was it that made you want to stick around for so long?
Yeah, so in the early days, of course, I always had bands going on and all of that. So it was kind of like MIRC was a great place. You get to come in and do your job and work with guitars and with other musicians, and then you get to go kind of do your band thing and all of that. And then as I grew in the company, of course, I always liked the business model too. Who doesn't think it's cool, right? Like we're saving these guitars from the landfill. Then the flip side is you're helping independently owned businesses thrive, and giving them access to brands that they generally couldn't have access to. Any way you look at it, it's a really positive experience of how the business model works, right? Mm-hmm. And so that always kind of kept me interested, right? Outside of even just the guitar aspect of it. And as I moved up and everything, it's like it just never gets old. So if you're into guitars, like Jason mentioned, like we don't just order a set number of SKUs, right? Like we purchase these items when there's the opportunity to. Returned items, distressed items, things like that. And so every day is really unique and exciting, and it's like, what's coming in today? We say a lot, it's like Christmas every day, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of us, it's like the guys in the back can smell it. It's like when a cool guitar, somebody opens the box, it's like this, it like permeates through the place. And like I said, I've been here 20 years and it's still like, what is that? It's just cool, man, So
I think for the listeners who maybe aren't as familiar with this side, we should probably elaborate on what it means by giving access to these brands that they normally wouldn't. And I'll let either of you guys take that. But what does that mean exactly? I know what you mean, but for the listeners who maybe aren't as in the business as we are, what does that mean?
So, well, I'll step back just one step further back.
Okay.
So what we do is we buy from the manufacturers any product that came in that doesn't meet their quality standards.
And I guess we should specify a little bit. Who do you mean when you say manufacturers? Vendor,
If I went through last year, we sold instruments with 152 different brand names on them.
There you go.
Now, a place like Fender has 10 different brand names on their thing. So there's 10 at one manufacturer. But if I tried to list all of them, I would fail miserably. But there's a lot.
Yeah.
And that ranges from Fender to smaller manufacturers. Everyone has the same, I'll call it, issues. If you're importing instruments, it's wood. Something's going to happen to one or two of those instruments that's in that container of 700 instruments.
Every time.
It's just going to happen because it's wood and it's coming across a big ocean. Mm-hmm. That is just, the percentages are going to work out like that.
Of course.
The other part of what we do is instruments that go out to music stores and something happened on the way there. So, FedEx truck ran over it. That's definitely happened before.
Of course.
Or, sometimes they just get mishandled and headstocks break off. Things happen. Or the electronics shook loose while it was in shipping. Well, all of that stuff ends up back here for us, because the last thing a manufacturer wants to do is work on an instrument that they've already sold, that's already been out there. Their job is to sell brand new instruments going one way out the door. Anything trying to swim back upstream is really tough on them, because
they're not built to do this.
They're not set up to do that at all. So we make their lives easier by taking all of that stuff off of their plate. And they all feel good about it because they're not just throwing it in a dumpster. These are going someplace and something's being done with them.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the instruments, we can go over specifics later, but we refurbish them. We get them as close to a stock instrument as you possibly can. And then we wholesale those out to small mom and pop music stores and pawn shops and online retailers. And they're stamped used, and they have the serial number changed on them. But a lot of these smaller stores like this can't afford to be a Fender dealer or a Taylor dealer or an Epiphone dealer. So they can call us, they can get access to these brands that they can't afford to get access to any other way.
Because there's a minimum buy-in for most of these bigger brands.
Right, which is many, many, many thousands of dollars.
Yes, and if you're just starting out, or maybe it's a pawn shop, like you said, it's not your main thing, it's just part of what you do.
Right.
It doesn't make any financial sense to invest thousands of dollars. There goes our let's see if we can let it down easy. There we go.
Market size too. They're in a small town.
Oh, right.
Rural.
It's like, I'm not gonna move $4 jillion in Epiphones no matter what, because I live in, who knows, the backwoods of Kentucky somewhere. And there's demand, but there's only so many people.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
But what happens many times is, though, these small music stores, and they're just starting out, and we help them get started, and then they grow into being dealers for some of these brands, and then we all high five.
Yeah.
Once they're a dealer for a brand, we don't sell them any instruments anymore. That's part of our agreement with all of the manufacturers. If you're a Fender dealer, we don't sell you any of our Fenders.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It keeps it clean that way. Mm-hmm. But we're actually excited when someone grows big enough that they can become a dealer for one of the brands. So there's plenty of people out there, and it's just growing the whole industry.
100%.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the MIRC Mercury X. My dad's always going on about how cool MIRC is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. So you guys also sell direct, and you sell, what I've come to find out is you sell everything. Because one of my first questions when I walked in here was, what do you guys do when something's either, I hate to say not worth it, but some things are just not worth it financially to repair. You're going to sink, several $100s into the repair, but the instrument will only retail for $99. You're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. But you do stuff with them still. You guys are very dedicated to keeping as much stuff out of the landfill as possible, and you do a really impressive job with it. But what are some of the things that you do when something's just a little too far gone?
For sure. Yeah, at our last resort is it can become a ukulele birdhouse.
Yeah.
It can become a wine glass holder. We make bookends out of bodies, and we've had some people that have seen the bookend sets that we make, and their first reaction is, why would you do that to a guitar? And then when they understand that this was its last stop, like everything else, we've stripped all the parts off it, we've used all of those parts on other instruments to repair those. Now it's either this goes into the dumpster or we make a set of bookends out, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it now, that's great.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever too, because I was like, surely something ends up in the dump. No, not much, really, at the end of the day. That's pretty impressive. And also, you guys are selling, if you aren't going to use the parts yourselves, you're also selling the parts. They're going back into the ecosystem,
right?
Literally into the guitar ecosystem for other people who are doing mods or have a small shop or something. So that's another resource that you guys are for a lot of people, which is, I think, probably a little bit lesser known even than the main business, but because I didn't think about that, but then I walked out there and like, look at this pallet of parts that we've stripped off. You really, even down to, just for the listeners, even down to the packaging, they're using all the boxes and then you're reusing the the styrofoam sheets and everything that comes with things. They're really doing they're keeping, I don't even know, maybe you have a number, maybe you don't, but you're keeping maybe millions of pounds of waste out of landfills every year?
Yeah, we're actually working with an engineer now that's going to get us all of those facts and figures that we don't have them yet.
It's a lot,
but it's a lot.
Yeah, because I'm an engineer. I'm not an engineer. But I'm gonna say it's in the millions. I'm guessing.
It's definitely a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'd be curious when you get those numbers to hear it, because it's cool. So, I feel like this business in particular, first of all, there's nobody else doing it, and certainly not at the scale that you guys are doing it, for sure. But it seems like the attention's really kind of turned up in the last maybe 5-ish years, I'm guessing, somewhere in that ballpark, since you took over, really. Has that just been, more people taking notice? Have you guys been intentional with trying to do more marketing? You're like, I know I heard of you guys from your own podcast, so what has that been on purpose that you're trying to bring? Because it seems like a little bit more of a B2B situation, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah.
which doesn't necessarily need the public to know about all this stuff. But you guys are becoming more public. So is that on purpose, or is it just people are interested?
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, the business started in 1993, so at the very beginning of the internet.
Yeah.
And this business model was basically pre-internet. And Monty, the original owner, was very concerned about the reputations of all of the brands, and would people look down on the brand having instruments out there that weren't, A stock, highest quality level. And so he did everything he could to keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we all know with the internet, you can either tell your story or everyone else will tell your story for you.
Absolutely.
So, among other things that we've done, once we bought the company, it was like, well, we need to tell our story because this is really cool, and it's actually a benefit for everybody. It's benefit for the manufacturer, it's benefit for the stores that have access to it, and it's benefit for the end users who get a great deal on an instrument they might not have been able to afford any other way.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's I understand the perception thing where he's like, oh, I want to make sure that the manufacturers don't look bad. But I think also, especially the people who are going to listen to this podcast, they're a little more educated about some of this stuff in general. Yeah. They're nerdy about it. They are interested into this kind of stuff. They understand that not every guitar that comes out of the Fender factory or insert factory here is going to be perfect. And maybe it was when it left the shelf, but things happen, and these are, organic materials that shift over time, and we've all seen guitars end up at stores that aren't perfect, that maybe came to you guys.
Right.
Instead.
Right.
We've all seen this happen because there's so many links in the chain. There's so many people changing hands. It's like, hey, some stuff's going to slip through the cracks. It's just going to happen. It just is. How many times have you accidentally got your neighbor's mail? It happens, right? Not very often, but a couple times a year maybe it happens. There's millions of letters going out. Some stuff's gonna happen. But the difference, I think, at least as far as I'm aware, there's not a lot of other consumer products industries that have the sort of landfill safety net that you guys have become, right? And that's kind of weird to think about. Like, how many other things just end up in the trash with a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yes.
To be able to do that is crazy. Obviously that has a huge environmental impact. But was that the first thought, or was it more just like, we love guitars and we want to rescue them? Like, what was that environmental? Because in '93, I don't think people were quite talking about that stuff to that level.
No. Yeah, and as I said, the first thing with St. Louis Music and the Alvarez guitars, that was these guitars are taking up space in our warehouse and we need that space back. How can we make this go away? And then Monty went, oh, well, here, I've got this idea. Let me try it. It worked. And then he realized as he was talking to the other manufacturers, everyone had a pile in the back of their warehouse, and none of them wanted to throw them away.
Right.
They wanted to have something to do with them, but nothing existed. And then he went, okay, I got it now.
Yeah, there's a problem that needs solved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is what businesses do. They're typically solving a problem of some sort.
Yeah. And Ian can speak to this better than I can because he's been here so long. But, the reason this all works is the people in the shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody I met here seemed to be really into it. Really, on the same page. And I guess, how do you foster a culture of that? You've been here so long. How do you manage to do that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things, and it's, but the biggest thing, of course, is just nurturing the environment and making sure that we hire people that are, our hiring process is pretty tuned in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not very often that we hire somebody that we think isn't gonna fit that culture, right? So it's extremely important. And then also, it's people that care about it in the same way that we do. You can kind of see it through starting in the interview process and then their first couple weeks. And when you get it and it clicks and it's something that you're personally invested in, you start caring about it, right? And so, our shop team in particular, as we're talking about just the refurbishment process, is very dedicated to the craft. You met Larry earlier. You know, Larry's been here since the year 2000. So he's our day one trainer. So he helps people really grasp what we do in the shop. And we have an apprentice journeyman master level program that we have everybody go through. So in many ways, it's become out in the marketplace. If you see those MIRC identifiers on an instrument, a lot of the consumers out there really trust those identifiers as, hey, this is technically being sold as a used instrument, but I know that it went through a professional tech's bench. And so it's not just a used instrument anymore, right? It's been gone through and professionally set up and cared for and passed our quality inspection at the end of the line. And so it's interesting to see, you know, after the 20 years that I've been here, how that's changed. The internet, of course, is a big part of that. Starting in 2004, still wasn't the internet was definitely not what it is today, right?
Right.
It's interesting to see what people say about those identifiers now, right? Because back to, you know, Monty and the thought behind, let's kind of do this quietly, wholesale B2B. Like, I think we all understand the whys of that decision. But to Jason's point of, if you're not going to tell the story other people are going to tell for you, it's interesting to see now what the story that the other people are saying, because it's like, I bought, you know, this is my 7th MIRC guitar and I would never buy anything else. You know, you hear, like, you get that kind of feedback. So it's very cool. And it does start, of course, with the care from our team to make sure that we're achieving those benchmarks and those goals with every single product that we send out.
100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean about, you can kind of see it sometimes in the interview process, and sometimes, you know, maybe not, but yeah, at Stringjoy we've had a similar thing where, and admittedly, like, I was pushing for a while. I learned my lesson, but I was like, let's maybe get some people who are used to factory work, because we were hiring a lot of musicians, still do, and luthiers and stuff, and it was like, let's maybe get some people who are used to factory work, because this is, you know, I would have a hard time doing this job because it's very repetitive. And we did that for a short time, and the few individuals that we tried that with, they didn't have the same passion for it. So they were letting things through that, I mean, our QC team caught it, but, like, they should have never left the bench. It should have went right in the dumpster. Like, no, that's not acceptable. And one guy, you know, we had to let him go, and because it was just so bad, it was just, the quality was never going to be there. And he was like, well, you guys sure are picky. That was his response. We're like, well, these are going out on people's instruments. You can't send it out the door like that. You can't, like, and he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Didn't play, didn't understand. It was like, looks good to me. So it does take a level of passion with this stuff to be able to execute at a level that, you know, you want to put your name on. You know, you guys are literally putting your name on it. I know it says, like, you know, something else on the headstock, but you guys are putting your name on it, and as you were talking about, it's gaining a reputation where it's, you know, there's a used guitar, but it's like, no, this is MIRC guitar. This one's, you're going to like this one, you know. And it's a good story for retailers to be able to tell. You guys are now telling it more publicly, and now there's a bunch of people going to hear about this from this podcast, hopefully. And I just think that's why when I emailed you, I was like, hey, I've been admiring you from afar for so long. I want to come by and see how the sausage is made, and it's honestly even more impressive than I thought. You guys are doing a really cool thing here, and I'm glad you're willing to talk about it more.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, to your point, it's like one of the things, big things that I've learned in the 30 plus years I've been in this industry is that we're all different. And the people that try to come in from the outside, whether they come from an office supply thing or they came from a shoe company or something, they don't have that passion. we're all ate up with it. This is what we do. And they generally don't succeed because they don't have that love for it, you know. Yes, we all want to make money, but we're not in it just for the money. Those guys are out there refurbishing these guitars because they love them.
Yes.
You know, yes, they get paid to do it, but they do it because they love them. And they'll come in my office and in Ian's office to show us repairs that they have done because they're just so proud of the things that they've done.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I was speaking with a retailer in Portland, 5-Star Guitar. They're really cool people.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Jeff's awesome.
Yeah, they're so good. But they were on the podcast here, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. And they said the same thing. They're like, people will try to come in from the outside with dollar signs, which to anybody that's been inside it's laughable, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right. You know, like, it's not that there isn't money to be made. Everybody, like, obviously we all make a living, but, you know, for the same amount of effort, you know, you should go into tech sales if money's the only thing on your mind, right?
Right.
So it's always kind of funny when somebody from the outside comes in with some big idea. But that's what they were saying. They were like, you know, we've had big players try to enter into the retail space that didn't understand the market. They thought, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just have guitars in our stores and look at us go, you know? Yeah. Guitars are valuable, we'll make money, it'll be great. And they completely failed because of the lack of passion. And I know that probably, like, maybe sounds a little bit cheesy because we all talk about it all the time in various places, but it's 100% true. If you're not into it, you're not going to be good at it, you're not going to put out quality products, you're not going to care enough to dig into the details of what that even means. And players, whether they know what the specifics are or not, can tell the difference. Like, oh, this thing plays like crap. That's all they know. Like, and that's all they need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you guys have? It's kind of interesting. I didn't realize you didn't sell to the actual dealers of the official dealers of, say, Fender or any of the other brands you work with. I could envision a world. Maybe I'm inventing this, but I could envision a world where dealers like working with you guys so much that they're like, I'm just gonna not do that, even if they get to a size where maybe they could. Is that a thing, or am I inventing that?
There's times.
Yeah.
There's some, you know, and it just depends on their market size. A lot of it. Is the juice worth the squeeze for their market size? You know, because the bigger companies need to have a bigger buy-in because they're big. And that's just it. In order to make the economics of the whole thing work out, you got to be willing to put 2436 guitars in your shop. And maybe for a small place, that's, you know, you only got 18 hooks.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
That's the whole wall.
Yeah. So as they grow, sometimes they go, well, yeah, I could, but do I really want to? Yeah. And some do, and it's great. And, like, you know, we use all of the contacts we have to help them get to that next level. And if they don't want to go to that next level, we're still here to help them.
Yeah. So here's some like real nerd stuff, and I'm sure this is especially for you, Ian. This is probably a tough question, but are there any repairs? Say maybe we'll narrow it down to like maybe the last 6 months to make this easier. Are there any repairs that are sticking out to you right now? Something like, how did that happen? And what are we going to do about it? Because we need to do something about this one. We're not going to bookshelf this guitar, but like, are there any repairs that like stand out, or projects you guys have worked on that have been especially cool in the last 6 months or so?
All right, you think about that, because I have a story to tell.
Okay.
So my wife just retired as a classroom guitar teacher in Alexandria, Virginia. For 22 years, she taught classroom guitar. So 25 to 30 kids in every class with guitars. So as you can assume, mayhem happens from time to time. So this past year, one of the kids was running through the classroom. There was a guitar on the stand and a nylon string, and they just tackled the guitar and fell off the stand, completely snapped the headstock off it, crushed the sides. The kid was mortified. And my wife's like, yeah, it's okay. Jason, we'll take care of it. And the kid was like, there's no way. This guitar can't be fixed. So Josh, who you met in the paint room, I took the pieces of the guitar to him, walked in and went, hey, one of Rosemary's students said there's no way this can be fixed. And he just looked at me and went, okay. A week later, he brought it into my office and went, here's the guitar they said couldn't be fixed. So we FaceTimed the class and showed them the guitar after it had been repaired.
That's awesome. Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblitzaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Hello, Tom May here, host of Future Friday. I've spent the last 15 years on the road with my band, The Menzingers, where I've met all kinds of wild and fascinating people. So I started a podcast. On Future Friday, I talk to fellow musicians about the moments that made them, their passions outside of music, and the curiosities that tie us all together. I've also talked to the likes of UFO researchers, magicians, soldiers, and documentary filmmakers, and I'm constantly searching for folks that can shape and change our view of the world. You can check out Future Friday wherever you like.
Hi, I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. We want to tell you about our podcast, None But the Brave, which is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the work of Bruce Springsteen.
We're currently in our 5th season. Our latest episodes focus heavily on Bruce's 2024 tour and have featured such guests as Anthony Castrovince from MLB Network and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
We're also covering the 40th anniversary of Bruce's biggest record, Born in the USA. And as part of that, coming up this week, Uprock's cultural critic Stephen Hyden returns to the show for a fascinating hour-long conversation about his new book, There Was Nothing You Could Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland.
To listen, you can go to our website, mbtbpodcast.com, or subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform.
We hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
I love that. There's no way.
Yep.
Impossible.
There's no way.
I mean, I've seen guitars that I thought couldn't be fixed, and some talented people were able to fix them. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was a goner for sure, but
Yeah, I'm a bass player, and I have a Court bass sitting in my office in Franklin right now that the control cavity got crushed in on it. It was really cool. It's a spalted maple thing, really nice looking bass. And it just in shipping, and it was in a hard shell case, and it still got crushed.
Wow.
So we're all kind of scratching our head as to how that happened. But one of our other guys, Ricky, I showed him, and I'm like, hey, what do you think? Can we put this cavity back together? And he started picking up the little pieces out of the bottom of the case, and he goes, yeah, I think there's enough of this here that we can all put it all back together.
Yeah, I think those are both great examples. But really, I think what comes to mind for me in that question is just how our shop team has made any repair process so streamlined and so efficient.
oh yeah, that was another thing I was going to get into.
Broken peg heads or headstocks, as an example, that is mortifying to the general public, right? A guitar in 2 pieces. And for our team, it's a normal day's work, and we've had to problem solve that because historically the traditional repair process for that is very time consuming. And you would be going backwards in labor costs very, very quickly, right? So that's what we do. And so we've spent the time and the effort, and our shop team has been a collective mind of figuring out how can we make this work, and because we don't want to make bookends out of everything.
Sure. Yeah. And plus there's only, the bookend market is more limited than the guitar market, I think, as far as guitar-based bookends.
Yeah. And so it's exciting just to be able to sit down and problem solve with the group and figure out, okay, we can make this work now. And then it becomes a profit center, but also a fun project and a source of pride for the technicians. And then ultimately, hesitate to say better product in the end, but the value has definitely been added back in, and where that repair has been made is definitely stronger in that particular repaired spot than it was to begin with. So just as a generalization for me, just watching the team be able to tackle, every shipment can be a little bit different, right?
Right.
And to have that ability to switch gears and pivot and come up with these techniques to where then the next shipment we get, we know what we're doing, right? And so it's been years and years of that. And so it's exciting to see, and so I wish I had a really fun and funny example, but I mean, you get the ones that are just, you think like that, like somebody sat on this thing or like literally got dropped out of the back of the FedEx truck. Like you do see that, but then there's also a lot of our stuff that is, man, it takes a really trained eye to go, yeah, I see, it didn't pass the initial quality from the manufacturer or whatever, but that's because they're highly trained professionals too. And they're seeing things with a very in tune eye, right? And so a lot of the stuff we get to is very minimal work needed, right? For our team in particular, because they're so trained to spot what we do and do it efficiently. And so that is really cool for me personally to see somebody that's never done guitar repair before come in here in 90 days. They're fixing stuff and showing us their repairs like Jason mentioned, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And kudos to our trainers for that, and for the people that are coming to work here and invested in it and want to learn. It's neat to see, because way back in the day, when some of these repairs were being figured out, we've got guys that come in here and within 3 months are, fixing stuff, and it looks so good that I remember a time when it was like, man, it would take 6-8 months a year for somebody to be able to fix it to that capacity, right? And now our team today is just very, very good.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a combination of like, the experience, seen so many different things, but also some of the repetitive stuff like the headstocks, that, eventually it's like you have to develop a process for it. Like you said, you'll go backwards in labor so fast with some of these things that if you don't have that tight, they do become bookends or something else, and that's not necessarily a good thing, So to see you guys be able to do headstock repairs, like you showed me some of the stuff, and to see how you are able to efficiently and at a high level fix an Epiphone. I think most people maybe I'm generalizing, but most people outside will break an Epiphone headstock and be like, well, time for a new Epiphone. Yeah. And you guys are able to efficiently and do a high quality repair on these and get them out the door and get them back in the hands of players. I know, like, a friend of mine, I was probably 15 or 16 when this happened. We played a backyard, like, punk rock concert. And a friend of mine came home, and one of his little brothers had knocked over his Epiphone and snapped the headstock off. And also somehow split the neck, like, vertically. Also, like, I'm not sure. They were just all like, I don't know what happened. And he's like, yeah, okay. But he's like, do you want to smash this guitar? Like, so we kind of, like, glued it sort of back together. And, like, at the little backyard party thing we were playing, I smashed it on a rock, which was not easy to do, by the way. That was way harder than it looked. It was the only guitar smash, outside of one that I put on Instagram that I've ever actually done. It was really hard. It's not easy to break a solid body electric guitar.
No.
They make it look so easy.
You got to try.
You got to try
You gotta
to
try.
get those things to snap. Yeah, that was a wild time. All that to say is that Epiphone probably ended up in the garbage, and you guys have rescued thousands of them at this point. So that's impressive.
Yeah, I think to Ian's point, some of our repair techniques that we use are specific to us, and they would be, out of the box to some repair techs that are working on general customers' instruments. And I think in general we found that, we have a lot of success with people that go through Ian's program here, and sometimes when people come and want to work here and they've already learned guitar building, they have kind of a tough time getting started here because, we don't necessarily, re-lacquer an entire guitar. We patch it.
Yeah.
We do different things, and they're used to building something from the ground up instead of just refurbishing the thing that needs to be refurbished. So, it's a different set of skills that you have to do what we do here, and it's just pretty cool to watch the guys do it.
Yeah, and that is worth noting. There are people out there who can build from scratch absolutely fantastic instruments, but they never worked in a repair shop capacity, and yeah, they can probably do some things, but repairing and building are two very different things.
Yeah.
You have to come out with a completely different mindset, and also you guys are doing even kind of a more, in my brain at least, a more specialized type of repair. Most techs are servicing players, and you guys, a lot of these instruments haven't really been played. I mean, you kind of clarified some of them have, but I'm still guessing a majority of them are not been toured for years and years.
Right.
You see.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas, maybe Dave at Scale Model, that's pretty much all he sees is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like two different sides of the same coin, but both requiring very different mindsets and processes. And also the results are kind of incredible on both ends. It's really cool to see.
But this is such a cool town and place to be for all of that, because there are all of these guys. Everybody talks about all the great players in town, and oh my God, there's just piles of great players. There's piles of great luthiers and repair people just as good as all of the players here in town. And anytime we run into something that we're not really sure about, there's 6 to 10 people we can call who are more than happy to share the information with us.
Oh, yeah.
And even come over sometimes and show us how to do things that we don't know.
Yeah.
It's just and there's no other place in the world where you have the kind of talent on the repair side of things as you have here.
Yeah, nowhere else in the world. I mean, a great example of how saturated it is in this town in a good way. And as I say saturated, but it's not, because there's still more work than anybody can handle. So it's not really saturated. Concentrated is probably a better word.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm here talking to you guys today. I was just talking to Joe Glazer yesterday.
Yep.
There's no shortage of amazing techs and luthiers in this town.
We talk to Joe all the time. He's awesome, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. To be able to have access to someone like that'll pick up the phone and answer questions for you is just amazing.
I tell you, it was a little bit of a trip for me, because I'd heard Joe's name long before I was ever in the industry. I knew about Glazer. And so it was a trip to me to be sitting there in his office yesterday with Scott and having him ask us questions about strings. I was like, what a weird world I have found myself in. This is a strange thing. Why is Joe Glazer asking me about a guitar? Period. But I get it. It makes sense. But my imposter syndrome was kicking in a little bit there.
Yeah, because he wants to know and he's genuinely curious.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he was just he knows what he's talking about. It was just he's never done that before. So why would he know some of this stuff? He wouldn't.
Right.
He's gonna come by at some point. But yeah, it was an interesting little guitar nerd pinch me moment. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what?
Yeah, he's inspiring.
Definitely. Well, we are getting close to the end of the podcast, and before I hang things up and go to the classic questions, I have 2 questions I wrap this up on every episode. I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor. You know, you can shout out, you know, anybody you want to shout out, call out your aunt, you know, plug anything you want to plug, say anything you want to say. You're talking to a few thousand people now, so the floor is yours.
I'll start. I'm just happy you came by.
Oh, thank you.
I'm happy to be able to show you this thing that I'm just so incredibly proud of.
You should be.
And I'm proud of every single person that works here. And we've been moving for the last 2 weeks now.
You've only been moving for 2 weeks? You've moved all that stuff in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know listeners don't have a great idea of what that means, but I'm going to take some more pictures and post them in the Facebook group and stuff. Yeah, that's really impressive.
But to watch all of the people here just pick up things and go, and no one in this building ever says that's not my job. Mm-hmm. They just do whatever needs to be done, and everyone's happy to do it. And I'm always happy to show anyone this business. So anyone listening out there, if you're in town, give us a shout. Come by. We usually end up doing 3 to 5 tours of the old building a week anyway, so we're planning that's what we're going to be doing here. So please come by and see it. It makes much more sense when you see it in person.
Oh yeah, I can vouch for that. Definitely come by here. It's just a little bit outside of the heart of Nashville, and it's well worth it. If you are into guitar nerdery at all, you definitely should do that.
Yeah. Ditto, Jason. That was well said.
All right. Final questions. Here we go. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, man.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
That would be tough for me because my gig is an upright bass player.
Okay.
So I generally don't use any pedals at all on that.
We'll fix you. We'll fix that. Yeah, we'll get you.
Somebody else asked that question the other day, and I was like, that's a stumper for me.
Wow.
I just don't.
None?
None.
Not even the tuner?
No.
Wow.
I was going to say, can I have 2?
Because you can have mine. I will give you mine.
This is literally a podcast first. I've had drummers be able to tell me what their favorite pedal is.
I would say the TU2,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I've had, as the first pedal I ever bought. I was like 13. Still have it. Still works.
Most popular answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if this would be as popular, but I like a DS1.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have the way that I tweak it. It's barely on.
Let me guess. You don't put the tone knob above noon.
Yeah. Never.
Never. Ever. I don't even know why it goes that far. Like you don't put the tone knob above noon on a DS1. Boss, you guys are geniuses, but I do not understand why you picked that range for the tone control. It makes no sense.
And I will say, it's not a pedal I use every day anymore. I did when I was younger for lead boosts.
Mm-hmm.
But it still has a place on my board.
Yeah.
So that's saying something.
I like it. All right. Final question. And I really hope Jason has an answer for this one. This will be depressing if not. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, it was just straight up pepperoni, but I've gone to like the Supreme.
I like
now.
a good Supreme, the olives and peppers and onions.
Yeah, in like the last couple years, I've transitioned into the Supreme. Yeah, and are we going brand or just?
Yeah, we're in Nashville too, so I'm familiar with most of the spots. So we can go.
Well, I mean, straight up, like we end up getting Marcos a lot because I kind of like their sauce.
Yeah. That one I haven't had yet. Like I've been to Five Points a lot.
It's a chain,
but that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, again, controversial maybe, but I like Hawaiian.
Wow. All right, I'm not publishing this episode now. This is ridiculous.
Okay. I need to, because there's my wife ordered a Philly cheesesteak pizza.
Interesting.
A couple months ago, And I was like, oh man, this isn't pizza. This is,
A Philly cheesesteak.
but it's delicious.
From where?
Marco's.
Oh, from Marco's. Okay. All right.
It's not red sauce, so I don't know if that counts as pizza or not. Or if
It's one of those weird things. Like, I used to be of the opinion a little bit like the taco pizza is real common, right? Like and I'm like
old school pizza.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of common in like some of those taco pizzerias, and like, wouldn't I just get a taco though? Like, but I'm starting to shift a little bit. I'm like, once in a while, maybe it's nostalgia kicking in. I'm not sure what it is, but once in a while, I'm like, okay, all right, we can order a taco pizza.
I mean, can you really go wrong with pizza though? That's the thing for me that's hard to.
I hate to say it, but I have before. Yeah, there was a pretty bad one in Portland. It's no longer in business, but it was really bad.
Really?
It was awful. I would take all the top, like, it was the only place that would deliver to my old job, so it was the only thing that would show up. And I got to the point where I was like, this crust is so bad, I'm just going to take all the toppings off and eat those, because this crust is an abomination. Yeah, it's an insult to pizza crusts everywhere. Little Caesars would have been a huge upgrade to this place. Like, huge. I would have rather had a cheap McDonald's, like McChicken, than their pizza. Their pizza was awful. And they're no longer in business, so there's probably something to that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for taking the time. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for showing me around the facility and everything. And we're going to go take some more pictures and I think eat some Mexican food. Does that sound good?
Nice.
All right.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Jason and Ian. And this is Blake. As always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can. Thank you for sticking with me through that one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got to know something you didn't know before. Seriously, check out MIRC. They are super cool. There are other interviews with them online if you need a little more information. And keep an eye out for their products at your local stores. Seriously, such a cool thing that they are doing. And speaking of cool things, this week's Patreon bonus episode is pretty special. It is with a jazz legend, a guitar legend in general, but a jazz legend specifically, Mr. Mike Stern. That's right, I'm giving extra bonus content. It's just $5 a month over there on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/tonemob, you can get not only the extra bonus episodes, you help support the show, and you can get access to the ad-free feed, which I know is something that a lot of people are enjoying. So check it out over there. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show. Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros,
covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles,
all while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.